The Girl in the Biohazard Cell. Doctor. Eli Warren stepped into the quarantine chamber's observation deck for the first time and stopped breathing for a second. The room below was made of thick glass walls glowing slightly with blue light, and in this center stood a single chair with a girl sitting in it. She looked no older than 18, with pale blue skin that shimmered faintly under the UV lights and long white hair that hung loosely down her back. But what truly froze Eli was her lips. The kiisi glistened like liquid mercury, and a small string of drool ran from the corner of her mouth down her chin. The last guard who stood near the glass had said her name only once. Rava X. They said her saliva could melt through steel within seconds, and that one drop had destroyed a titanium plate used in armor. All around her were layers of protection, sealed suits, cameras, auto-spray cannons. But the girl just sat there barefoot, knees pulled to her chest. Eyes watching the window Eli had studied hundreds of alien species before, but never one like this. He turned to the lead researcher who was watching a monitor. "She's been here for 4 months. Eli said softly. "No interaction." "Only remote tests," the researcher replied. "Even the cleaning bots have acid-resistant coating, and we still lose one every week." "She's not hostile." Then Eli asked, still staring at the girl. "She doesn't speak." The researcher said, "She's never moved unless forced, and even then only to avoid pain. She's not attacking. Not. Yet anyway." Eli walked down the hallway toward the main observation point and pressed a button to speak to her through the intercom. "Hello, can you hear me?" he asked slowly. The girl looked up her eyes, a strange purple-blue mixture, and nodded very gently. Eli blinked. That was the first confirmed response. "What's your name?" He tried again. She opened her mouth and a slow whisper came out, barely audible through the speaker. "Safe." Eli paused. "Safe." He looked at the microphone, then back at her. "Do you mean I'm safe?" She nodded again. Slower this time, and leaned forward slightly. Her lips moved again, but no sound came. Eli stepped back up to the main console and pulled the latest test logs. Every sample of her saliva had corroded. Metal, shattered plastic, even scorched. Thick alien hide from predators on Zyros 9. But when he looked at her now, she didn't look dangerous. She looked scared. "I want to do a test," Eli said quietly to the guard beside the console. "No way," the guard shook his head. "She's too risky even. Looking at her is a hazard. I'll wear gloves," Eli said, then paused. "Actually, no." The guard's eyes widened. "You're joking," she spoke to me. Eli said slowly, and her tone was not violent. She said safe, and she was calm. No record ever shows her being calm near a living being. Eli walked to the manual override and entered his clearance code. A small hiss echoed as a side panel in the chamber slid open, a clear wall rising between Eli and Rava. She didn't move, but her eyes followed his every step. One slow breath after another, Eli walked into the chamber without gloves, without a suit, without anything but his medical scanner. He stopped 5 feet away. Rava looked at him, eyes wide, glowing softly now. He raised his hand slightly and waited. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. She didn't answer, but her gaze softened. A small drop of her silver saliva fell from her lip onto the floor. The floor hissed and steamed, and Eli flinched slightly. But Rava closed her mouth quickly and turned her head as if ashamed. "You don't want to hurt anyone, do you?" Eli asked softly. She shook her head very slowly. "Can I come closer?" Another nod. Eli took one small step, then another. His heart pounded and his hands trembled, but he kept walking until he was right in front of her. She looked up, her face blank, but her eyes were filled with something deep. Pain, maybe loneliness or fear. Eli raised his hand slowly and held it just above hers. Then he touched her fingers. Everyone in the control room screamed into the mic, but Eli didn't pull back. Nothing happened. No burning. No melting. No sound. Rava gasped quietly. Her lips parted in shock. She looked at his hand, then hers, then back at his eyes. Safe, she said again. Louder this time. Eli smiled gently. I believe you. She was not a weapon. She was not a monster, and he was going to prove it to the entire galaxy. But outside the chamber, a hidden red light blinked silently. Someone was watching, and they were not happy. Metal bones and living fear. After the contact, the entire base went silent for hours. Dr. Eli Warren was pulled out of the chamber by guards in panic suits, scanners beeping around him, expecting his skin to fall off or his bones to melt. But nothing happened. He sat quietly on a medical bed while machines scanned his body again and again. No burns, no cell damage, no toxins. He was perfectly fine. And Rava, she had just watched, sitting still in her chair, silent as always, except for that one word safe. When the tests came back clear, Eli was allowed to return to the lab under heavy watch. He didn't care. He just wanted answers. He stared through the glass at Rava again. This time, she sat a little closer to the wall, watching him with cautious eyes. Eli opened his notebook and began recording. Saliva causes instant corrosion to almost all materials, except human skin. Why? He flipped through older reports. Alien metals, armored plates, synthetic flesh, all melted in seconds when exposed to even a single drop. But in his case, nothing. No irritation. Not even warmth. It was like water to him. Tapped his pen slowly and then looked up at her again. Rava, he said calmly into the intercom. Can you understand what I'm saying? She nodded slowly again. Her white hair moved like silk against her shoulders. He tried again. Do you know why? Your saliva doesn't hurt me? She hesitated, then shook her head. But then she said something new. Human, inside me. Eli blinked. What do you mean? She pointed to her chest, then to him. Part. Like you. The translator system struggled with her broken words, but Eli understood enough. You have human DNA. She nodded. Eli sat back, shocked. No report had ever mentioned this. He opened the system logs again and searched through her genetic files. But the files were locked, classified at the highest level, military access only. Someone had hidden this from everyone. Soft voice broke his focus. Born. Lab. He looked up again. Rava's hands were shaking. She spoke slowly, with difficulty, but her words were clear. They made me. Mix of things. Like what? Eli asked gently. Metal blood. Acid breath. Human skin. I don't know why. Her voice cracked, and she turned away. Eli felt something in his chest twist. She wasn't just an experiment. She was a person. One who didn't even understand what she was. A living puzzle locked in a glass box. He pressed his palm against the glass. Do you want to leave this place? She looked at him, surprised. Yes, but they fear me. I don't, he said simply. Rava leaned forward, pressing her hand to the glass where his hand was between them. Only a few inches of reinforced crystal. But something real passed through. Something human later that evening. Eli met with the head of the research station, Commander Vorn. An alien with a long face and deep violet skin stood behind a desk covered in security logs. You touched the asset, Vorn said coldly. She's not an asset, Eli replied, trying to stay calm. She's part human. That doesn't change her classification, Vorn replied without emotion. It changes everything. Eli snapped. You've been keeping this a secret. The human part makes her more dangerous, Vorn said. Her body rejects non-human contact, but your kind. She can bond with you, manipulate you, Eli slammed his hand on the desk. She hasn't hurt me. Yet, Vorn growled. You think she's harmless, but what happens if her emotions turn? If she feels betrayal or fear, she'll melt your bones in your sleep. Eli turned and walked out without answering. He didn't believe that back in the chamber. Rava waited near the glass wall again. When she saw him return, her lips curled into something almost like a smile. Eli sat down across the glass and whispered, "They're going to move you." Her smile faded. "Where?" "Military lab?" he said softly. Someplace worse. Rava looked down. Her hands clenched into fists. "Then I will be." "Weapon?" "No," Eli said quickly. "I won't let them." She looked at him, unsure. "You can't stop them." "Maybe not," he said, "but I can try." They sat in silence for a long time. Two beings trapped in different kinds of cages, one made of glass, one made of rules, but both equally dangerous if broken. As Eli left the room, he didn't notice the small vent at the ceiling shift slightly. A tiny red light blinked inside. The recording had started, and far away, a transmission was already being sent to someone powerful, someone who did not want Rava's truth to come out. The escape protocol. The night was quiet on the outpost. Too quiet. Dr. Eli Warren sat in his small lab office reviewing footage of Rava again and again. He zoomed in on the moment she touched the glass and mouthed the word "safe" again. He knew she wasn't lying, but someone else clearly didn't care. A red warning light blinked on his screen. Transfer approved. Subject Rava X. Code black. Military custody. Ellie froze. They were moving her. Not tomorrow, not in a few days, but now. He jumped to his feet and ran down the corridor. His access card clutched in his hand. Down in the security level, he passed two stunned guards and reached the glass chamber just in time to see what he feared. Two soldiers in black armor were already inside. One held a stun rod. The other was ready with a containment pod. Rava stood backed against the far wall, her glowing eyes filled with fear. "Don't resist," one soldier barked. Rava said nothing, but her body trembled. Her silver saliva dripped slowly from her mouth, sizzling on the floor. The guard stepped forward, lifting the stun rod. Rava flinched. "Stop!" Eli shouted, running to the override panel. But the door wouldn't open, locked from command center. He slammed his fist on the panel again and again. Inside the chamber. The guard moved to grab her arm. Rava panicked. She opened her mouth and a fine mist of her saliva sprayed forward. The stun rod melted instantly. The armor on the guard's arm burned through within seconds. He screamed and fell backward, crashing into the wall. The second soldier aimed his weapon, but didn't shoot. Rava turned toward Eli, her body shaking with fear. She didn't want to hurt anyone. Eli grabbed the emergency override and used his personal code again. Unauthorized entry security. Breach detected. The door hissed open. Without thinking, Eli rushed inside and reached Rava's side. She stepped back at first, but then saw it was him. "I'm here," he said quickly. "I'm getting you out of here." More alarms blared around them. The remaining soldier shouted into his comm. "Subject loose. Human is helping. Contain now." Rava grabbed Eli's wrist and stared into his eyes. "You trust me?" "I already did," he said as he pulled her forward. They ran together through the side corridor, the floor still smoking behind them from her acid trail. Sirens echoed through the halls. Metal doors slammed shut, one after another. But Eli knew the way. He'd studied every part of the station. They moved through a maintenance shaft, past sleeping quarters and down into the cargo bay. As they ran, Rava looked around wide-eyed. It was the first time she'd seen the outside of her chamber in months. She whispered, "Smells like freedom!" Eli smiled despite the fear, but they were not safe yet. At the cargo bay entrance, a group of guards blocked the way. One of them raised a weapon. "Step away from the subject doctor. She is property of the Defense Command." "She's a person." Eli snapped. "She has human DNA. She speaks. She feels. She's not a weapon." The guards didn't care. One of them aimed again. Rava stepped forward and raised her hand. Her saliva dripped to the floor and hissed loudly. The guard stepped, back eyes wide. "She will destroy the ship." One of them warned. Eli held up his hand. "She won't hurt anyone unless you force her. Stand down." The guards hesitated. Rava's eyes glowed even brighter now, almost like light was building inside. "Her! Let her go," Eli said again. "She's not your prisoner." The lead guard finally lowered his weapon. "Fine, but you'll both be hunted." "We already are," Eli said. He took Rava's hand and pulled her onto a small transport shuttle in the docking bay. The ship was old but fast, just what they needed. Inside, Eli quickly started the engine override while Rava sat in the co-pilot seat watching everything. The shuttle lifted into the sky moments before the main lockdown activated. Blasts of anti-air fire flew past them. But Mist Rava looked back through the window at the outpost shrinking behind them. She whispered, "Never going back." "You won't have to," Eli replied, but his hands were still shaking. This wasn't just escape. It was rebellion, and it wasn't over back at the station. Commander Vorn watched the escape footage with tight eyes. "Activate bounty protocol," he said coldly. "Classify the human as a rogue traitor, and bring the subject back, dead or alive." Rava's secret. The stars outside the shuttle window blinked like cold little eyes. Rava had never seen them like this. Not through thick glass walls or data screens, but real, open space, free and quiet. She sat with her knees pulled close, watching the blackness while Eli piloted the stolen ship through a dead zone sector near the asteroid belt. They had been flying for nearly 6 hours. Eli's hands were tired, and his face was pale. But his mind stayed sharp. He checked the scanners again, and again for tracking signals, but nothing showed. Yet maybe they were lucky for now. Rava turned toward him and said softly, "You're still afraid." He glanced at her and forced a tired smile. "Yeah, but not of you." She tilted her head slightly, like she was studying something inside him. "Then why?" Eli let out a slow breath. "Because we don't know what's coming next." He stood up and walked to the back of the shuttle where the med kit and scanner equipment were stored. He gestured for her to follow. She came without question. He sat her on the small bench and held up a scanner. "Can I check something?" he asked. She nodded and offered her arm. The scanner buzzed, and a display glowed with odd symbols and broken strings. Her biology was different. Some pieces looked human, others alien, and some completely unknown. But one thing was clear now. Her saliva production was increasing. Eli looked confused. "Your system is overactive. It's creating more acid than your body can hold safely." "Why?" Rava hesitated, then said slowly, "I think I'm bonding." "Bonding?" he asked. "With you?" She said quietly. Eli stared at her, not understanding. "I was designed to destroy machines," she continued, "but they added human DNA to help control emotions, empathy, loyalty, but they didn't know it worked too well." She looked down ashamed. "When a human shows kindness, my system chooses them." "Chooses them how?" She touched her chest. "It changes me to match them, to protect them, to serve them if needed." Eli took a step back in surprise. "You mean you're biologically linking to me?" "Yes," she whispered. "It's not a choice. It just happens." Eli didn't know what to say. She was part weapon, part science experiment. And now something in her DNA was telling her to bond to him forever. He sat down slowly. You could have bonded to anyone. Why me? You didn't fear me, she replied. Everyone else ran. He looked into her eyes. She didn't look like a monster. She looked like a girl trapped by something she never asked for. I'm sorry, he said softly. This isn't fair to you. She smiled a little. It's better than being alone. A sudden beep broke. The quiet. The radar flashed red tracking signal detected. Eli jumped back to the controls and slammed the scanner screen. A military drone had locked onto their signal. How did they find us? He muttered. Rava stepped forward and pointed to a small chip near the emergency beacon tracker. She said, they put it in every cage on the station. Eli tore it out and threw it into space. But it was too late. The drone had already sent coordinates. More ships would follow. He turned the shuttle hard and sped toward a nearby moon covered in junk fields. Hold on, he shouted. They crashed through the upper atmosphere and bounced against the magnetic storm layer. Sparks flew through the console. The shuttle screamed as it hit the ground, but they were alive. The outside was dark, full of scrap metal and old broken machines. Perfect for hiding. Rava stepped out first. The air smelled of rust and oil. But she didn't mind. Eli followed with a survival pack on his back. They found a small hollow space beneath a fallen cargo carrier and crawled inside. There, they sat in silence, listening for any sounds above. When nothing came, Rava whispered, "Why are they afraid of me?" "Because they don't understand you," Eli replied. "And what we don't understand, we fear." She was quiet for a while, then said, "If I bond too long, my system may change you too." Eli looked at her confused. "Change me how?" "I don't know. But the longer we stay close, the more our cells connect. It's rare, but possible." He didn't answer right away. Then he smiled a little. "I guess we'll find out together." She stared at him like no one had ever said that before. Not with fear, not with caution, just acceptance. Above them, the sky rumbled softly. The hunters were coming, but deep below the metal and fire, a human and an alien girl began to understand something stronger than fear. They were no longer just running. They were connected, hunted across worlds. The junk moon was cold at night. Winds howled through broken engines and shattered satellites, while the sky above flickered with distant lightning from the storm. Belt Ely and Rava sat inside a rusted cargo pod hidden under a pile of crushed metal wings. Their small fire barely gave heat, but it was enough. Rava stared at the flames like she'd never seen fire before. Maybe she hadn't. Ellie handed her a protein bar. She sniffed it and then slowly took a bite. "Not bad," she said in a quiet voice. He smiled a little. "I didn't think acid-spitting aliens would enjoy human food. I was never allowed to try," she said. "They said I didn't need taste, just results." Eli's smile faded. He hated the way she said those words, like she believed them. Like she still thought she was just a tool. He shook his head. "You're not a thing, Rava. You're a person no matter what they built you for." She looked at him for a moment, then nodded slowly. But something in her eyes still held doubt. Just then, Eli's wrist scanner blinked red. He tapped it and saw movement on the long-range radar. "Ships just entered orbit," he said. "3 of them." Rava stood quickly. "Military. Most likely," he replied. "They must have traced our crash." She didn't speak. She just walked to the edge of the pod and stared at the sky like she was trying to guess their next move. Eli began packing their few supplies. "We need to leave now. There's an old mining station on the dark side of the moon. We can hide there for a while." Rava didn't move. she said in a soft tone. They won't stop. Eli looked up. I know, but we'll stay ahead of them somehow. She turned toward him. No. I mean, they'll never stop. Not unless I disappear or die. He stood silent for a moment, then said firmly, Then they'll have to come through me first. She opened her mouth to argue, but the sound of engines above made both of them duck down. A patrol drone flew, low scanning with bright green lights. Ely grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the back exit. They ran through rows of broken ships and rusted containers until they reached a tunnel leading into a mountain of debris. Inside was pitch-black Ravaz, eyes adjusted fast, but Eli needed his light. They moved slowly deeper into the metal maze. Suddenly, Rava stopped and touched a wall. This ship. It's old human tech. Eli looked at the dusty hull and smiled. You're right. It's from the Mars cargo fleet, probably dumped here after the war. She walked inside and sat down. This place feels strange. Eli scanned the wall and found a working energy port. He powered a console and checked for old maps. The ship's comlink was dead, but the navigation showed a secret path. An old jump pod buried beneath the junk pile. If this still works, we could jump to the Vega system. It's not safe, but at least we'd be far from here. Rava nodded, but then she gasped. Her hands shook, and she leaned against the wall. What's wrong? Eli rushed to her side. My body. It's changing again, she whispered. He scanned her quickly. Her cells were glowing faintly under the skin. Her saliva glands were hyperactive. And something new had started. Something spreading from her chest toward her spine. Eli stared at the readings. It's your bond with me. It's going deeper than before. Too deep, she said in a weak voice. I feel like I'm becoming something else. Eli held her steady. You're still you, Rava. You're just adapting. But what if I can't stop it? He looked her in the eyes. Then I'll stay with you, no matter what you become. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the junk field. The mountain, above them, shook. A missile had struck the outer layers. They were out of time. Eli grabbed Rava and pulled her through a service hatch that led to the lower engine bay. There it was, the old jump pod dusty cracked, but still whole. He powered it up while Rava guarded the door. Outside drones flew closer, scanning everything. They had only minutes. Ely loaded the coordinates. Ready? Rava looked at him with glowing eyes. I trust you. He smiled. I wish I trusted this pod. They climbed in and sealed the hatch as the countdown started. Eli reached out and took her hand. She squeezed it tightly. A soft glow moved from her skin to his. It didn't hurt. It felt warm. Then with a loud crack of energy and light, the pod vanished into the stars. Behind them, the beat moon shook with fire as the ship searched through the wreckage. But they were already gone. Not safe yet, but together. The betrayal and the cure. The jump pod landed hard on a desert world filled with red sand and jagged rocks. Vega 4 was once a mining colony, but now only ruins and bones remained. The air was dry and thin but breathable. Eli stepped out first, scanning the area. No life signals. We're alone, for now. Rava followed, slower this time. Her steps were heavier, and her skin glowed faintly in the shadows. She didn't speak at first, but her eyes stayed locked on Eli like she was watching something deeper than just movement. They found shelter in an old research shack half buried in sand inside. Broken tables and shattered data pads covered the floor, but one thing still worked. A medical bed with a basic biosync machine. Rava sat down quietly while Eli connected her vitals. Her heart rate was rising fast. Her saliva production had now reached dangerous levels and something was spreading along her spine. Glowing lines of light that pulsed slowly like veins of power. Eli stared at the screen. Your cells are rewriting themselves. Not just bonding, they're evolving. Rava looked. Up into what? I don't know, he said quietly. But you're not breaking down. You're changing into something new. Her voice was softer now. Is that good? I think it could be, he replied. But if the military finds you like this, they'll take you apart just to understand it. She smiled faintly. They always wanted me broken. Eli didn't answer. He sat beside her and held her hand. Her skin felt warmer now, almost human. Just then, a signal flashed on Eli's wrist. Incoming transmission. Earth command clearance. He tapped it open quickly. A human face appeared. A woman in a silver uniform with sharp eyes. Dr. Eli Warren, we received your distress call weeks ago. We thought you were dead. He sighed. In relief, I'm alive, and I'm with Rava-X. She's not a weapon. She's intelligent, part human, and she saved my life. The woman's face stayed calm. Understood. Send coordinates. We'll extract both of you safely. Eli looked at Rava and she nodded slowly. He sent the signal. Help was finally coming, but what landed hours later wasn't help. A large black ship came down from the clouds with no Earth markings. It looked human, but carried no flags, no medics, just soldiers in dark suits. Rava stepped back the moment she saw them. Eli frowned. This doesn't look like rescue. The leader stepped forward, a tall man with white gloves and a cold voice. You're Dr. Eli Warren? Yes. Where's the Earth envoy? We're your only hope now, Doctor. The man said, step away from the subject. We're taking her into custody. Eli stood in front of Rava. No, you can't do this. She's not a threat. She is the threat. The man said, she's evolving into something beyond control. She saved my life. Eli argued, she hasn't harmed a single human. Test me if you want. The man raised a device and scanned Eli. Then he paused. The screen showed something strange. Your DNA. It's showing signs of shift. Eli looked shocked. What? Her bond is altering you. The man said, you're infected with her cells. I'm not infected. Eli snapped. She's not a virus. She's alive. She trusts me, but the soldiers were already moving. One aimed a weapon at Rava. The glow on her back flared. She stepped forward, eyes burning. Don't touch him. The air shimmered with heat around her. The man raised a signal rod. Sedate her now. Before the dart could hit her, Eli moved. He stood between them and shouted, Stop! Please! Just listen to her! Everything froze for a second. The soldiers hesitated. Then one lowered his weapon. Another said softly, She's not attacking. She's protecting him. The leader snarled. She's dangerous. No. Eli said firmly. She's more human than most of you. She didn't choose this, but she made a choice not to kill, even when scared. The leader gave a final order. Take them both. Force if needed. But before anyone could move, Rava dropped to her knees. Her body glowed fully now, like fire under skin. Eli rushed to her. Her voice was weak. It's too fast. I can't stop the change. He scanned her. Her heart was failing. Her cells were crashing from the pressure. I need to stabilize her core body system. She needs a sync match. Fast. Santo, soldier who lowered his gun earlier, stepped forward. You said she bonded to you. What if your cells are the key? Eli nodded quickly. He grabbed a med injector and set the settings to transfer small samples of his stabilized blood into her system. Please, work. The moment the injector touched her neck, her body seized. Then slowly the glowing lines faded. Her breath returned steady. Her eyes opened again, soft and alive. The machine beeped. Stable Eli dropped to the floor beside her. She looked at him with tired eyes. You gave me life. He smiled gently. You gave me something too. Purpose. The soldiers stayed silent. The leader was speechless. One of the medics finally spoke. We need to take them both, but not for weapons, for understanding. The ship lifted off with new orders. No more chains. No more cages. Just a future built on trust. Humanity's choice. The ship hovered gently over Earth's skyport as sunlight broke through the clouds. Inside the landing bay, a group of Earth officials and scientists waited in silence while security stood by, unsure of what would step out next. Then the doors opened. Dr. Eli Warren walked out first. Behind him walked Rava, no longer in shackles, no longer glowing out of control. Her skin was calm, her eyes soft, her posture steady. And for the first time since her creation, she was not afraid. Eli held her hand and whispered, "We're almost there, just a little more." Inside the Earth Council chamber, giant holograms floated above the room, showing live news feeds, public reactions, and military reports from across the galaxy. People were divided. Some feared Rava's power. Others called her a miracle. The council members sat in silence as Eli stepped forward. He stood before them, tired, bruised, but determined. "My name is Dr. Eli Warren." He began, "I am a xenobiologist and the man who made contact with Subject Rava X, or, as I now call her, just Rava." One of the council members raised her hand. "You understand the risk, Dr. Warren? This being can melt steel, destroy machines, and adapt her body through biological bonding. Why should we let her stay on Earth?" Eli didn't flinch. "She could have killed me 100 times. She didn't. She chose trust over violence every time. Isn't that what humanity always hopes for from others?" Another voice asked, "Why does she only bond with humans?" "Because she carries our DNA." Eli replied, "She was created with a piece of us. Maybe that's why she sees us not as enemies, but as home." They turned to Rava. She stepped forward slowly and spoke. Her voice was clear, though soft. "I didn't ask to be born in a lab. I didn't choose to have acid in my mouth. But I can choose what I become now. And I choose to protect, not harm." One older councilman stood. "You were built as a weapon." She looked into his eyes and said, "Then let me be the first weapon to refuse war." A silence filled the room. Then Eli added, "We have seen aliens destroy planets. We have seen machines go rogue. But this time, we have something different." He turned to Rava. "She's proof that peace can grow out of destruction, that a being built for death can still choose life." The room stayed quiet for a long time. Then a final vote was called. One by one, the members gave their decisions: allow her to stay, or send her away. In the end, the results came in. Majority said, yes, she could stay but under watch, and only with Eli by her side. Outside, news feeds exploded across Earth and many allied systems. The story spread like fire. Human scientist bonds with alien weapon, saves her from meltdown. Alien girl declared safe by Earth Council. From death to trust, the Rava X decision. Back at the research base, now rebuilt under peace terms, Eli and Rava moved into a quiet home near the forest edge. She would be monitored, but not caged. She had access to education, art, books, and more. Sometimes she sat for hours just watching birds fly past the window. Other times she painted strange images from her dreams. Colors and shapes no human had names for. Eli helped her adjust. He cooked food she'd never tried, taught her how to laugh when she didn't understand jokes, and stood close whenever she felt uncertain. But over time, she changed even more. Not in power, but in heart. Her body stopped glowing with danger. Her saliva only reacted when she felt true. fear or anger, and around Eli, it was calm one night. As they sat under the stars, Rava spoke. Do you think I'll ever be normal? Eli looked at her. You're already more than normal. You're extraordinary. She smiled shyly, then reached for his hand. I used to believe no one would ever touch me without pain. He squeezed her fingers gently. Now you know, some things are stronger than acid. She laughed softly. It was still new to her, but it was real. They stayed there for a long time. Human and hybrid once hunted, now at peace. Once feared, now chosen. And in the quiet sky above them, no ships came to take her away, because Earth had made its choice, not to fear the unknown, but to understand it. And through that choice, something new was born. A future where even the most dangerous being could find love and a place to belong. The end.